Hi, Dr. Patton here. I know most of you that will be working in Chem 4230. There are a few new faces, but we'll get to know each other. Uh, I'm going to go over some policies in the course syllabus for this semester's lab in these interesting way we're going to try to accomplish this. So if you do have available to you the syllabus, I'm going to be reading it from my other screen, so you might want a copy of it as we go through today's little discussion on our policies. So there's two sections, a Monday and a Wednesday section, and we're going to be doing a face-to-face rotating attendance, and I have posted a schedule. I've had a few people ask questions about it, and I've encouraged you to send questions if you don't understand the schedule. So my email is posted on the syllabus. That's the best way to get in contact with me. My office hours will be offered in a Zoom format. There'll be Mondays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., Wednesdays 11 till 12, and later on Wednesdays from 1 until 3. If any of these times are not compatible with you, please send me an email and we'll schedule a time that's compatible with both of us. Now, this course is going to be graded and it's going to be added to your 4230 lecture grade. Dr. Symes will get these and he will use it, and it's probably listed in his syllabus on how he will incorporate the grade for your lab. Let's see what else we got here. Now, for the lab experiments that you'll be conducted, you must have goggles. All of you have been through Chem 3210 lab, and I'm hoping you have your goggles from there. I will have some spare on hand. Not sure if I can do that because I just thought about it. We're in a COVID situation. You need your own goggles. So you need to bring goggles. You need to have a face mask and have all those available for you on the first day of lab, which is August 24th for group 1. So let's go through our course assessments, how you'll be graded, and I'll go over the calendar that's posted on the syllabus. You're going to be graded based upon an online lab orientation quiz, which will be taken on Canvas. It's going to go over topics that are covered in the syllabus, some requirements of past experiments or experiences that you may have had, maybe some sample calculations. Go through that. It's worth 25 points. There's also a plagiarism quiz so that you understand what plagiarism is. Hopefully many of you have already read through and have had courses where plagiarism and trying to prevent it was stressed. You're going to be submitting lab memos, and these lab memos will be uploaded onto Canvas as a document, either a PDF document or a Word document, and I scan them. They will get scanned and checked for plagiarism. There'll be 4 lab memos. Each of them are worth 50 points. I have posted on Canvas a sample lab memo on the proper way of writing a lab memo. And since there's 4 of them, each of them are worth 50 points. That's a total of 200 points for your lab memos. Now, even though you're only going to be submitting 4 lab memos, and we'll talk about a formal lab report, you're essentially going to be using 5 different instruments. You need to take all the pre-lab quizzes associated with each instrument. Each of those pre-lab video quizzes, so it's a video, you watch it, you answer some quiz questions. Those are worth 5 points each, and those will be offered on Canvas, and that's a total of 35 points. You'll be keeping a lab notebook, very similar to what you did in my 32. If you had me for 3210 lab, this is going to be the same type of lab notebook that you've kept for your 3210 lab. I have a document. It's probably the same document if you had me for 3210 lab that you saw prior. I'm only collecting it once at the end of the semester. So these lab notebooks are for you to conduct yourself in lab. I might, if you have a question in lab about something, I might ask, well, let's look at your lab notebook to see what you have written down so we can help you. If I can't look at your lab notebook in a lab setting and help you from it, can't really help you. So make sure you have your lab notebook with you in lab. If there are any type of pre-lab calculations that need to be conducted, make sure you have them done. You have them done properly. See me if you need help. If you have any questions about your lab notebook, please contact me. Your data will be kept in there. You will be keeping any kind of recorded graphs or plots that you generate in the lab will be kept in your lab notebook. If you write a lab memo and you're using information from the lab notebook, refer to your lab notebook. This way, you have documentation of where you got this information from. We're going to try something different this semester. And I will post, if I haven't already, I'll check. We're going to conduct a formal lab report during your last rotation in the course, in the lab section. The formal lab report, I'll post a document stating what's required, more or less a rubric of what I'm looking for, what's involved in writing a good formal lab report. Give some examples of what's not good, so some bad examples. And I've also contacted some of the faculty to get copies of formal lab reports from some other courses, some other lab courses. So I'll try to get that all available to you, so we have some information on how to prepare a formal lab report. If we tally all the points that are going to be available, there should be 430 points available to you by the end of the semester. So make sure that's correct. That's 245, 280, 380, 430 points. That's good. So any questions, send me an email and I'll answer them. Okay, calendar. I have a calendar available to you with a point breakdown also. So lab memos are the meat of that's the main course. That's going to make up most of the points that you'll be striving to attain in the course. There will be 4 of them, 50 points each. They will be due 1 week after you conduct yourself in lab. And I'll go over this. This is on the lab schedule. And I'll go over some a brief discussion on the lab schedule here before we end. The lab orientation quiz, the due date, I have it listed on the syllabus, Friday, August 28th, 25 points offered through Canvas. Plagiarism quiz, also Friday, August 28th, worth 20 points, conducted on Canvas. I have some pre-lab questions, the videos. Now, pre-lab for the UV vis, fluorescence, FTIR, and atomic absorption, those are the first 4 labs that are going to go through our first rotation and our second rotation. So those will all be due and submitted through Canvas Friday, September 25th, and they're worth 5 points each. So for those 4, that's 20. Now, the third rotation, will involve your decision on your formal lab. Now, the formal lab is going to be written based upon either the GC mass spec, cyclic voltammetry, or high performance liquid chromatography. There's a pre-lab video for each of those. You need to take all of them, and those are due on October 16th. Formal lab report, these will be due approximately 10 days to 2 weeks after you conduct your final lab experiment. And those are on the lab schedule, and that's worth 100 points. Lab notebook, those will be collected November 16th. and they'll be worth 50 points. And I will discuss more about that as we get towards closer to the end of the semester. Now, I'll do my best to get the grades posted with the lab memos within a week of doing them. The first ones I'm going to try to get quicker, and that way you have some information on how to write your next lab report, which would be several weeks after. So late work. Okay, we'll get people to turn things in late. So how am I going to grade late material? So you're going to lose 10% for each day late up to 2 days. So let's just think about your first lab memo. First lab memo is worth 50 points. 50 points, okay. Good with that. You turn it in 1 day late. You turn it in 1 day late, you lose 10%. So now it's only worth 45. In other words, you lose 5 points on whatever score you get. If you conduct your lab memo, I grade it, it's a 47, and it's a day late, you lose 5 points, it's now 42. If it's 2 days late, you lose 10 points. Do we understand that? If you don't understand that, send me an email and I'll explain it to you again. If you turn it in after 2 days, I'm not going to accept it. Not going to accept it. Now, the late work, I'm going to close the work that's due on the deadline date. You actually have to send me an email and ask me to accept it. So I'm making an effort. You gotta turn it in on time. If it's late, you have to contact me and let me know that you're sending in something late, and we'll look at how late it is in terms of how many days it is. Now, the formal lab reports, they need to be done. They need to be submitted on the day that they're due. I will not accept any late formal lab reports. That's the caveat there. If you're working in lab, again, you need to have goggles. You need to have your face mask on. We need to really keep social distancing and policy strictly enforced. You need to clean up after yourself. Again, you're working in lab. I shouldn't have to clean it. You need to clean up after yourself. You're working by yourself. So I will know if you were working on AA and the AA area is filthy that day, I'll know who did it. So make sure you clean up after yourself. If you don't, if it's a mess, I'll document it and you'll lose 5 points from your lab memo if it's a mess in the area that you were working with. When we're working in lab, well, I'm going to be having several people in lab at one time. There's going to be, at any moment during our first cycle, we're going to have 4 instruments and there'll be 8 people working in lab. There'll be, 4 people, 4 instruments, a person on each instrument, and then they rotate out. So, I mean, how many is it? That's 4. Okay, we have 4 instruments going on at one time: UV Vis, fluorescence, FTI, R, and AA. Well, actually, it's only 4 students. There'll be 4 students in lab, 4 instruments going on. And what I do is when you come into lab, I checked the lab schedule, everyone, and the lab roster. You're all seniors. I'm expecting a lot out of you. I'm expecting you to come into lab ready to work, and I'll give you a brief description of the instrument, and I'm going to say, get to work. This is it. You got to get to work. And I'll do that for each group because there's going to be, or each person, because there'll be 4 people working on 4 different instruments. There'll be instrument instructions by the instrument. If you get to a point in the experiment and you're like, should I push this button or shouldn't I? Well, it's probably a good idea not to push a button if you're not sure. If you get to a point and you're not sure what you should do is what you should do, contact me. I'd be glad to help you in that situation. You'll have your lab notebook ready. You'll be ready to work. And the way we're going to be working in the lab is it's a 3-hour period. We're going to have 4 people, 4 instruments, and we're going to have you set up where one person will be doing UV vis, another person is going to be doing fluorescence, and the lab's going to be set up where you should be able to complete those experiments in an hour and a half. At the end of an hour and a half, those two switch out. The person that was doing UV vis now does fluorescence. The person that was doing fluorescence does UV vis. So it's vital to work efficiently. You don't want to cause the other person to be late because you weren't working efficiently. So you are dependent upon the other person. So make sure you come in prepared to work. I have a description of what the lab memo will be, and I have an example posted. Formal lab report, I will post more on Canvas when I get some actual lab, formal lab reports from some people. You should have a working knowledge of Excel. I'm expecting you to have conducted Chem 3210 lab, so that's something you should be able to do. You need to attend every lab that you're scheduled to attend, and I'll go over the lab schedule example in a few moments. But there is the COVID-19 issue that we will discuss a little bit. I have a link for campus safety. Again, we need to wear face masks. Okay, COVID absences. This is important. This is a topic that we've been dealing with now for almost 6 months or more. If an issue arises due to COVID, I'm just going to say an issue. That's all. That's the only information I get. I don't get any detail as to your medical condition. It's confidential. But you need to contact me by email within 48 hours of finding out you have an issue with COVID that might result in you missing lab. So you do need to contact me. You need to let me know I'm not going to be in lab. I'll work with you. We'll figure out something to either get you through the rest of the semester, or in an extreme case, we'll give you an incomplete and you can complete this at a later time. So if an issue arises due to COVID, let me know and we'll work something out. In the event that there is a change of policy on campus where we're not going to be doing courses face-to-face, we're going to an online mode, well, then I have a plan set up. You will still be conducting all your pre-lab videos and your quizzes. I'll post additional lab simulations. Right now, I found 2 more, so I'm working on finding a few more for that. You will conduct one formal lab report for the work that you've done, or from one that I assign if we don't get into the lab at all. And I also plan, if we go into an online mode, if the university changes to online only, then there will be a final lab exam. So there will be an exam if we go into an online mode of teaching. So you do need to contact the DRC if you have any issues that are related to COVID. Contact me. Any issue that you have that you need accommodations, go through the DRC and they'll send me an accommodation requirement for you, and it's confidential. So that is up to you. I'm sure if you've had accommodations before, you may know what you need to go through. So let's talk a little bit about schedule. And I actually created a document that gives us a scenario. So this is just a rotating example. So this is essentially what you're going to be doing. I have this posted. You all can read it, but let's make sure that there are no questions with how we're going to be conducting ourselves in the laboratory. So this document, it's a Word document. It gives us a scenario of 2 students that are working in lab. So I have a lab schedule written up for, 4 students actually. Niels, Erwin, Elbert, and Marie. So probably familiar with those first names. I'm not going to say who they are, but you might know Niels Bohr, Erwin Schrödinger, Albert Einstein, and Marie Curie. So if they were in lab, that'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? But they're not. So let's just look at what they're doing in their first rotation. So let's look at their rotation. Niels comes in, he does the UV vis, he's prepared. Erwin comes in and does the fluorescence experiment. Should take them about an hour and a half. So that gets them to about 7 p.m. We start at 5:30. They switch. They switch at about 7 p.m. And then Niels will do the fluorescence. Erwin will do the UV vis. Now, they were in on the 24th. Their lab memo is due the following week on the 31st. And they're going to send in 2 lab memos for their first lab meeting. Okay, so they come in, they do their lab. Albert and Marie, they do their rotation, and they send in their lab memos the same day. So they get a few weeks off. They were in on the 24th. They get a few weeks off where they don't have to come in to quant or instrumental lab. So what you would do in that time period, well, you'd go through the pre-lab videos. You'd answer those pre-lab video questions. You would start to research one of the final labs we're going to be conducting during our 3rd rotation. So that's important. I want you to look at the cyclic voltammetry, HPLC, GC mass spec. Read about them. Find out one that you're interested in. Maybe you're thinking of grad school and you're like, hey, the person that I was looking at for working with does a lot of HPLC. I think I'd like to do that lab to have more experience with it. So you're going to read through these and you're going to find one of these experiments that you find fascinating that you want to conduct during your 3rd rotation. So a few weeks later, the same group comes in. This would be in September on the 21st, and they switch their rotation and they conduct their lab memos the following week. Now we're approaching October 1st. October 1st is an important day. It's the day that you're going to decide on what your final lab rotation is going to be, what experiment you want to do during your final lab meeting, the experiment that you're going to write a formal lab report on. Now, you're going to send me an email with 3 choices, your 3 top in order. I want to do this one first, this one second, that one third. And let's look at our scientists that we were discussing here and see how these were sent in. Okay, these are due October 1st. And Marie's on the ball. She sends her request in for her 3 choices at 12:01 a.m. I'll get a timestamp. I'll know who sent what in first. She chooses GC mass spec as her first choice for that week that she's working. Niels, HPLC was her second choice. CV is her third. Niels sends his in a little bit later. He chooses CV as his first choice. GC mass spec is his second. HPLC is his third. Erwin's a little bit later. He sends his in the next day, October 5th. It's like several days later. He wants to do CV also at the same as his first choice. And then Albert Einstein, he's very late. He sends us just before the deadline, 11:58 p.m., and he chooses HPLC as his first. Well, no one chose that in that group. So that's what Albert's going to get. The only 2 that we have to work with are Niels and Erwin. Those are the 2 that chose the same experiment. So since Niels sent his in earlier, he's going to show up first that day. So when they come into lab, Marie comes in at 5:30 p.m. She'll do GC mass spec. Niels comes in at 5:30. He does CV. Albert, he does HPLC. And that's the only experiment that we're only going to allow one person conduct because it's a long experiment. Now, Erwin, since he chose his a little bit later than Niels, He's going to come in during the second half. He'll come in at 7 p.m. Now, they're in there on October 19th. Come in, they conduct their experiment, and they collect their data, and they start working on their formal lab report. They look at the Canvas posts that I have on what's required for a formal lab, an example of a formal lab, and they're going to write this and submit it by November 2nd as an upload through Canvas. I'll grade it, and I'll get it back before the end of the semester, and it's worth 100 points. So that's essentially how we're going to conduct our lab. I'll be posting the procedures for each of the experiments on Canvas. The pre-lab videos will be posted also. And if you have any questions as to what else needs addressed, I'll be glad to answer it. And we're just going to try to do have a safe semester and have a good learning experience for everybody. And again, I know a lot of you, and a lot of you are finishing up, and it's been I enjoyed working with all of you that I've worked with before. It's been a real pleasure, and I wish you the best. I'll be seeing you in lab. It's a shame that your academic career is ending during this crisis that we're having, but just try to stay safe. We don't want anything bad to happen to anybody when we're working in lab. Okay, so we'll see Group 1, Rotation 1, on Monday, August 24th, and Wednesday's group will meet on Wednesday, August 26th. Any questions, please contact me. Have a great day. Bye.